Hi everyone, welcome to Lola's Frugal Life. This is episode number 189. Today we're going to be talking about accomplishing goals with small steps. So please stick around for a few quick words from our sponsor and we'll get right into the show. Okay everyone, so before we get into the topic for this week, even though this topic definitely can be applied to financial frugal topics, financial goals and things like that, it's kind of a more broad topic about accomplishing goals and things like that. So I do want to do a frugal tip of the week so that we keep some frugal aspect to the podcast every Monday. So my frugal tip of the week for this week is, if at all possible, try to have a backup plan for your backup plan when it comes to your budget. So this doesn't have to be specifically written out, but it's always good to have some places in your budget that you know you can pull from if you need to. Now, I understand in some situations there just might not be any wiggle room. But assuming that you have a budget with a little bit of cushion in there, some places, or maybe not even cushion, but maybe some things that you could, really try and pull back on if you needed to. Try and, in advance of anything happening, finding all of those little areas in your budget that you could pull from if something else comes up, because something always comes up and it just makes it so much easier to address if you already know that you have some little places in your budget that you can pull from to cover the expense. So depending on what comes up, obviously there might not be enough to pull from, but at least it can help just a little bit, and then you'll have to figure out how to address the rest. But I just feel like the more little backups you can have in your budget of already having a plan on where you can maybe cut back, or, maybe you're planning to do something and you're like, okay, well, that's going to be the first thing to go if something else happens. It just kind of takes away some of that stress, and it just kind of helps with, addressing things when they do come up and not having to worry and try and figure out at the last second, like, how you're going to address things. So that's my frugal tip of the week. So this week, this episode marks my 1-year anniversary of starting this podcast. So I was really excited about doing this episode, and the topic kind of tied in to my 1-year anniversary, because when I started this podcast, I was very unsure if anyone at all would listen. So what I did is I said, I kept thinking about starting a podcast, and it kind of came and went, and I would think about it, and, I'd really like to do that. I'm like, but no one's going to listen. And it was just a kind of back and forth for a while. So then I decided that I'm going to do 100 episodes. If anybody listens or not, I'm going to do 100 episodes. And then once I had 100 episodes done, I would decide if I was going to continue or say, oh, well, that didn't work out, and move on. So thankfully, some people did listen, and I'm continuing, and I'm really happy and excited watching this grow. And, I have the Facebook group now, and it's just really fun. So anyway, what made me think about this topic of accomplishing your goals in small steps is that when I set that goal of 100 episodes, at first I was just like, oh yeah, I'll do 100 episodes and then I'll see where I'm at. But it didn't really occur to me until I did my first few episodes that 100 episodes is a lot of episodes. And when I thought about it, like after I had maybe, 4 or 5 episodes done, I was like, wow, how am I going to think of 100 things to talk about for 100 episodes? Like, how will I ever think of enough things to create 100 episodes? And it was kind of like overwhelming. So what I decided to do was, instead of focusing on that end goal of hitting 100, was to just take it one episode at a time. And when I would get one episode done, then I would think about the next one. And then, I did want to be consistent, so I did have deadlines to make sure that each episode was completed on time and things like that. But I didn't focus on coming up with 100 ideas to create 100 episodes. I just focused on what I needed to get done for the next episode to be complete, and just did that small step at a time. And as you just heard, this is episode 189. So I've well bypassed that episode 100. Now, of course, I didn't think of 100 topics because I only do one topic episode each week, and then the other 2 episodes are more like, the meal planning and the zone cleaning. So it's not like I'm thinking of new topics for those. But I still completed 100 episodes, and for the Monday episodes, I did talk about different things, similar, topics, similarities, and the same type of theme. But I was able to talk for all those episodes, which I thought at first, like, how am I going to be able to do that? So that's what gave me this idea for this anniversary episode to do the topic of accomplishing goals with small steps. Because what helped me continue on this goal and complete it was just by doing one step at a time and not looking at this giant picture of 100 episodes. It was just one episode, then the next, then the next. So with goals, when you're going to start trying to accomplish a goal, you don't want to wait until you have the perfect plan in place from start to finish, because that can lead to procrastination and cause you to not take any action. So what you want to try and do is figure out what first little step you can take and just do that. If you just keep taking small steps, you're going to keep making progress on your goal. So you want to kind of try not to let that amount of time or the amount of work that's involved in getting to that end goal discourage you. You just want to try and focus on your first small goal that you can likely achieve in a reasonable amount of time. And then once that goal is done, determine what your next small step in that goal is. And just keep working on that one little step at a time. And by completing these smaller steps, you're going to build momentum anyway, because you're going to get all those like little rewards of completing these mini goals along the way. Like if you ever think, do you ever think about like how much time has passed since some major event has happened in your life? Like, wow, I can't believe that was 5 years ago. That happens to us all the time. So what if you had started some of your long-term goals back then by just tackling little pieces over time? Just think about how much you can accomplish, how quickly that time goes by. And if you're working on things a little bit at a time, even though right now it feels like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be able to finish this major goal for 3 years. Well, before you know it, 3 years is going to be gone. And if you're working on it a little bit at a time, you can have that done, and it's going to be here before you know it. I'm not saying that most of these goals you're going to be working on are going to be multi-year goals, but it's more just as an example on, how time passes. And if you're using that time to make little action steps on your goals, you can really accomplish a lot over the course of time by just taking little steps to keep working further and further towards that goal, and not trying to look at this overwhelming picture of what some really large goals might be. So when you're going to start these small steps, you might want to try and break down your goals into small steps so that you kind of know what you want to focus on. So you want to break down your goals into actionable steps, like specific steps that you can take to make progress on your goal. So when you break down a goal into steps, you can focus on one at a time, which will make things feel much less overwhelming, and they'll just help keep you moving forward. So you want to break down the steps as detailed as you can make them, to make them more manageable and to give you all those little things to check off. Like, okay, I got this step done, I got this step done, next is going to be this step. And it just kind of gives you a nice roadmap of exactly what you need to do to keep moving forward. So as far as breaking things down into steps, one really good example that I've heard many times is the boiling water example. That I don't know what else to call it, but I've heard this several times as far as breaking down things into steps. So you can tell someone to just go boil some water. Or if it's someone that doesn't literally know even how to boil water or what that means, you would have to say, okay, go grab a pot, put water in the pot, bring it over to the stove, turn the burner on, put the pot on the stove, maybe put a lid on the pot. Like, you're going to literally break down each step. That's the same way that you want to do it with your goals, because the more you can break it down into little manageable pieces, the easier it is to accomplish each of those little pieces and keep moving forward. So that's kind of the thought process you want to have, like literally break it down into little steps that you can easily accomplish and just keep moving forward on getting to that end goal. You can also break things down by time. If, say, you have a goal that has a certain time frame that you need to complete it, so you want to figure out like how much time you have and how long it'll take you to do. Say if you need to get something that has to be complete, I don't know, in the next 60 days. And you might say, okay, well, I have 2 months to do this. It's going to take me this many hours. So how much time do I need to put into this over the next 4 weeks or whatever to get this project done? And maybe you want to break that into like a daily amount or a weekly. Maybe you can only devote 1 day a week to it. So you want to say, okay, every Saturday I need to put 15 to 30 minutes into this project. So you're breaking it down into little time pieces so that you can make sure that you get it done in the so that you can make sure you're devoting enough time to it to get it done by time this needs to be finished, so that you're not 2 weeks out and now you're like, oh my gosh, I have this 4-hour project that I have to get done within the next 2 weeks. So you want to kind of plan ahead and break it down in like little bits of time so that you can just keep devoting those little bits of time to getting it done. You can also break a goal down by how much you need to get done. Like say, for example, if you have a goal that's more like task oriented, that maybe includes a specific amount of steps or tasks that need to be done, a really good way to break it down is by quantity. So like say if you have, maybe pictures to sort through, maybe you have like 20 envelopes of photos and you're like, I really need to go through these photos and sort them out and maybe get them in albums or whatever. So maybe you're going to say, okay, in order to get this done in the amount of time that when I want to get this done by, I'm going to have to go through either maybe 1 envelope every other week or half an envelope every week. So it just feels more manageable to say, okay, I'm just going to go through 1 envelope every other week rather than say, oh my gosh, I have to go through 20 envelopes. So it's just kind of like the way you're thinking about it, you still have the same amount of work to do, but by breaking it down into those little pieces, you're kind of just making progress over time. And then before you know it, you'll have it all gone through if you just kind of stick with that little action step that you've determined will get you to where you need to be. And, this isn't only for kind of like these long-term goals. You can really do this with like any other little things that you want to start doing more of or accomplishing more. You can do them in little pieces. Like say if you want to be able to read more, read a paragraph or 2 when you have a couple of minutes. Like just because you can't sit down to read for an hour doesn't mean that you can't do like a little bit here and there. If you want to start doing push-ups, maybe you commit to do 1 each day. You're going to naturally do more once you're on the floor anyway, but it's just that those little tiny steps. Even with saving up for something, like you can start putting away money aside for it whenever you can, and those little bits of savings can add up a lot over time. It's even just kind of the momentum and getting moving. It's the same thing with these larger goals. You have to just start, and then before you know it, it's going to just keep building by doing these little steps rather than looking at this big picture of this enormous goal. So those are just that's kind of like some ways to think about it. And I think that most importantly of this trying to accomplish your goals with small steps is to actually make sure that you're going to take the small steps, because setting the goals is the easy part. As much as you come up with a really well laid out and achievable goal with small steps broken out and exactly how and when you need to do it, that will really help you lay out your plan to achieve the goal and make it much more manageable. But if you don't actually start taking those steps, it's not going to get you anywhere. So you really can't wait to be motivated to get started, because that doesn't always happen. We're busy. We always have a lot of things going on, and you kind of have to really commit yourself to say, whether I feel like doing this or not, I have to get this much done on this day or at this time or whatever. So, one idea is to just schedule an actual time to work on the goal so that you can hold yourself accountable. You can even put it on your calendar in a time slot, just like you would any other appointment, and say, okay, Saturday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to do this for a half an hour. And when it's that time, just start doing it. And a half hour will be over before you know it, and you'll have made some progress, and you'll feel really good about it. But if you're writing down all these small steps and you're trying to schedule yourself, but then you just keep blowing it off, and you just can't get yourself moving on getting this goal done or even making any progress, you might want to consider if this is even a goal that is really important to you. Because sometimes we can't get moving on a goal because even though we think it's something that we want, it's really not that important to us if we have no desire to put the effort into it. So rather than making yourself feel bad about not making progress on a goal that maybe you don't even really care about, maybe just pick something else to focus on that's really important to you and try moving forward on that. Because if something has gone by this long and you just can't get moving on it, maybe it's just something that isn't a high priority. So consider the goals that you're working on too, and make sure that you are picking the ones that are the most important to you. Make your actionable tasks and just work a little bit at a time. Commit to it, put it on your calendar, and before you know it, you'll see how much you're accomplishing, and you'll just be really happy that just by taking those little steps, over as time passes, you'll be able to see how much you can accomplish in those little bits of time, and not having to look at this goal as like this enormous project. So that's all I have for today. I hope this is helpful to you. If you enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe. You can reach me with any feedback, topic suggestions, anything you'd like to reach out to me for at facebook.com/Lola's Frugal Life. You can message me there or post on the page. You can also email me directly at lolasfrugallife@gmail.com. We also have a private listeners group, which I check pretty much every day. So if you would like to submit a request to join, I will admit you as soon as I see it. That's at facebook.com/groups/Lola's Frugal Life. What else? Oh, don't forget to rate and review if you enjoy this podcast, because that's really helpful to me in having others find it. If you'd like to share this podcast with any of your friends, that would be great also, if you think it would be helpful to them. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a really awesome day.